The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
All right, Mike Clowney opens up with a statement about Senior Day, Military Appreciation Day, and wrapping up the home schedule against the Limestone Saints.
A lot going on. For us, I think, the military appreciation, we're just so grateful for people that serve our country and just glad that we're able to kind of do something to give back to them. But the big one for us is Senior Day. A group of guys that, a little bit of both this time. Most of the time you're dealing with guys that's, been through here 4 years and have done a career here, and, so grateful for those guys and what they've done here at Carson-Newman. But then we got a lot of guys that's, this time we did a lot of grad transfer seniors that's, already graduated from somewhere and they've just been here for a year. But even then, still, how it is. Once you are part of this family, you're part of this family. So we're grateful for all of those guys and what they've done for us here at Carson.
You kind of alluded to that. It's been fun to watch guys like Justice Alexander ingratiate themselves into the culture of the program and have all-conference caliber campaigns in Justice's case.
Yep, and so you get Justice, BT, Dudley, so a lot of the names that, we're getting familiar with this year, unfortunately it'll be gone. But we're just really grateful for those guys, and they had a little bit more time than they would have normally had here because you're looking at, that scenario, they would have probably just been here for a semester and played for a semester. But with COVID, they've been here over a year and a half. And so hopefully we've done a good job of pouring into those guys.
Small senior class by Carson-Newman standards, just 15. And, you allude to three of the grad transfers, not a ton of four-year guys in this class. Does that make the senior speeches a little bit more intimate, the fact that you're not trying to cram in 30 throughout the week?
Yeah, and so that's the one thing we really do it next week. This one's more about, celebrating them on the field, and then the next week we do a lot more with them just talking about, trying to leave something with the program that, they feel like, push the program through. And so, but it is, a little bit more intimate. A lot of the guys, may not know as much about, but, hopefully there's still been some conversion there while they've been here that they can really share to help, push the young guys along. But that's kind of part of, what we've talked about all year, not a whole lot of seniors there because, last time in 19 we graduated a ton of guys. And so, we've talked about playing with a lot of young guys, and that's the reason we're playing a lot of young guys because there are not a lot of older guys that were here at the beginning of the year.
Limestone, you want to talk about the Saints, you got to talk about Jerkoya Patton. Feels like this has been a really running back heavy league this year. But he's another one coming off of a 100-yard game, leading receiver for the Saints last time out against UVA-wise. What capabilities does he have in the backfield for Limestone?
He's a good back. We talked about him, he was a freshman of the year a while back, and just overall, we have persistently talked about, teams running game in the league. And it's amazing how that transformation has happened because at one point, everybody was throwing the ball around all the time. But now there are a lot of quality running backs, and he had a great game last week, long run for touchdown that he capped off, and then just kind of being able to, be a productive runner out of the backfield. And then, like you say, he's led them last week in receptions. And so he does a lot of things well. You got to be conscious of where he's at. He's a hard runner, just a good football player.
Lonzo Houston is probably having the best season by a Carson-Newman linebacker since 2013 when Jacob Coleman had an All-American campaign, 137 tackle season. 4 straight double-digit tackle performances by Zoe. Cup was the last guy to do that. Can you draw any similarities between those two?
Having Coach Jacob, they're really a lot. They're really different. Jacob was more of an outside guy that really was a DB that we converted to linebacker and put him outside, and he was able to, be productive playing back in the box a lot. Lonzo is kind of the opposite of that. He's done a really good job. He's an inside guy that's done a really good job of just trying to spread himself out across the field. A lot of times when you look at those numbers, the thing it really boils down to is effort. Having played linebacker, all my life pretty much. The thing that happens is just like, if you have to learn how to do your job, and if you're going to make plays, then you have to learn how to be other places after you get your job done. And I think it speaks to his character that, he's willing to go out and play every play so that you can finish a game with double-digit tackles.
What kind of leader has he blossomed into this year?
I think this year for him, it's been a lot more about example. He was a little unproven coming into the year, and I think, he's done a good job of taking this year and working his tail off to where he can be productive, to kind of give himself a little bit more of a megaphone to be able to talk, in the future. And hopefully, this is something that he can kind of go back and look at this season and say, what can I take from what I learned and what I was able to accomplish this season, to help, going forward.
We're talking about defensive players that kind of led the way by example. I feel like a guy like Trezell Jaredini-Weish is kind of similar in that, just from his mentality and mindset. How has he been a leader on the edge for your group?
Trezell's fun because he's one of those guys that just does everything he's asked to do. He's a dual sport athlete here, so for him, we get a lot of guys that do track and football, and most of the time they kind of have a tendency to favor one or the other. But with Trezell, man, he is a kid that's really worked to be productive and be involved and be engaged, as much as he can on both ends. And just his example, when the kids come out there, they know that Trezell's going to give you a great effort. He's a little bit more vocal. We're talking about Lonzo. He's a little bit more vocal. He's a little bit more encouraging. He's a leader on campus, and so the leadership quality for him are obvious.
From an offensive standpoint, turnovers have been a major factor for that group. Is there anything that you can do as a coaching staff to try to ensure that those guys protect the football a little bit better this weekend?
Yeah, and so that's one thing you go look. We didn't actually, as far as, fundamental carrying the ball, didn't have one of those last week. And so that's one of the things coming out of last week's game that we were really proud of. Our guys kind of held on to the football. Now, what we did do is make a couple of throws that, we need to put in better places or go to a different place with it, so we had the 2 interceptions. And then we got the miscommunication on the snap, which is, something that, there's not a whole lot of blame to put there. We get the running back that didn't go in motion and we try to send him and we hear somebody say go or go, and then we snap the ball because we heard a sound. And, so we turned that one over. So the turnovers in this last game were a little bit different than some of the ones that we've had before, but same thing, we got to be able to take care of the football. The biggest thing for us on that, it's really a lot about focus, and making sure that we do detail things right.
Talking about detail things, we've talked about how successful your kick return unit is. Well, we joked upstairs the team should just start kicking the ball out of bounds or do an onside kick. Well, incidentally, Mars Hill does an onside kick and they recover it.
Yes.
How much of a challenge is it right now for that coaching staff because to try to teach that group to be prepared for anything, because you haven't seen really a true deep kickoff in a couple weeks?
Yeah. So Coach Goss has got that task, but it's amazing because, the one thing that you always want is buy-in. And so when you talk about a group, there's literally 11 guys, and sometimes they change from week to week, but whoever goes on, they're bought into, hey, it doesn't matter. We're going to try to find a way to, make this work. And then, it's been challenged. They'll fire each other. If someone goes in and dribbles the ball around, and then they'll fire each other, because that's something that group's taking pride in. And to just, we've worked onside kick, and, Kit does a great job. He gets right over the end guy's head, and, we turn, and we've got to try to make sure we get the guy chasing out of bounds. But then they come back with an onside kick again, we're able to get it. And so, they've even been prepared to, to do those, and so Mars Hill was bold enough to do it, and one of them worked out for him. But, we'll spend a ton of time just every kick. They'll watch the video, and it's amazing now. In that meeting, it's just they're coming up with ideas. Hey, well, if they do this, can we do that? Or what does this look like? And so you're starting to see them interact with coaches, and that's long term what you really want to get from your entire team, where your players and coaches can interact and come up with ideas and things together, to where that's really what you're talking about, building a championship-type program.
You bring that up, and you are so beat up in some positions. Offensive line comes to mind. Defensive secondary comes to mind. How challenging is it to navigate to that end goal when, again, let's bring up the offensive line. It's been 8 weeks. You've had 8 different combinations of players start games. To proceed to that end goal, the players are fully bought in and providing ideas, but you haven't been able to attain a level of consistency because guys are hurt.
It's a challenge, but it's a challenge both ways. You know, it's a challenge in a sense that, you know, it makes it complicated week in and week out to just kind of, you know, push yourself forward and go to where you want to. But it's also a challenge in a sense that, like, you know, every week when guys come to practice, they know that there may be an opportunity to play out there. You know, we had a couple guys that had opportunities to play, you know, this past game that, you know, probably otherwise wouldn't have had them. And, like, it makes what you do, you know, during the week, you know, even more and more important because now those guys can visually see, like I may really have an opportunity to go get in this game and play quality snaps. And so, like, you know, the challenges is something that you always want your guys to be able to rise to and accept. And I think overall, you know, especially for both of those groups, I think, you know, for the most part, you know, they've done it. Like, we've made some mistakes along the way, but, like, they haven't backed away from the challenge.